This is TWiT.
California DMV has completely suspended Cruise's robo-taxi permit. They are off the road in San Francisco. That is huge. You couldn't go anywhere in San Francisco without seeing Google's Waymo vehicles and GM's Cruise vehicles everywhere.
But is Waymo still on the road and Cruise?
Yes, but here's what happened. You may not have heard this back in New Jersey. Do you have news back there? But what happened?
We have people who actually drive their cars here. So
Yeah,
you
we
lazy
don't.
little suckers.
I think there's just someone on the corner who kind of shouts the day's headlines in Hoboken, right?
Today in San Francisco. This is from TechCrunch. The DMV's order of suspension, which TechCrunch has viewed, states that Cruise withheld video footage from an ongoing investigation.
Oh boy!
So a few weeks ago, it's a sad story. A standard vehicle driven, I think it might have been a truck, by a human, struck a pedestrian, kind of in the middle of the night. Later, the woman flew into the air. And got in a Cruise robo-taxi, drove over her, and then dragged her.
Oh no!
And killed her.
Oh God!
So it was a mess. It was a terrible, terrible thing. Now these things, by the way, I should point out, people get hit fairly frequently. Pedestrians get hit in San Francisco. It's not an unusual thing. Sometimes they get killed. Yeah. But the issue was that the DMV said, we want to see you. We know you. There was no video of the initial strike, but there was subsequent video from the robo-taxi. During the meeting, this is from the Department of Motor Vehicles in California, the department was shown video footage of the accident captured by the AV's onboard cameras. The video footage presented to the department ended with the AV's initial stop following a hard braking maneuver. Footage of the subsequent movement of the AV to perform a pullover maneuver was not shown to the department. Cruise did not disclose that any additional movement of the vehicle had occurred after the initial stop. The department only learned of the AV's subsequent movement, which incidentally killed the pedestrian, via discussion with another government agency. In other words, Cruise hid the fact. The other government agency was the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, which has also opened its own investigation. It happened October 2nd, early in the month.
Cruise's GM, yeah?
Yep. The AV traveled
went up done today, nonetheless.
The portion of the video that the DMV says it did not view initially showed the Cruise robotaxi, after coming to a complete stop, attempting a pullover maneuver with the pedestrian trapped underneath the vehicle. It traveled 20 feet, going as fast as 7 miles an hour before coming to a complete and final stop. And sad to say, that's what killed her. So because, they didn't cooperate, they lied. Basically, they tried to hide it. The DMV says you can no longer operate. I'm not sure how long the suspension will continue. They can continue to test with a safety driver. It's just no longer will they be allowed to drive without a safety driver. Yeah, well, they had gotten, this is a month after the California Public Utilities Commission gave them full permission to operate without safety drivers at all times of the day or night, everywhere in the city.
I didn't think it'd been that
meanwhile,
long.
this just gets me. Tesla's supposed automatic driving is allowed on the road. If anything should be regulated in technology, it's that piece of crap.
Yeah.
But Mr. Jarvis, some will argue that, there's plenty of humans behind the wheels killing more people than these autonomous vehicles. Is that fair?
Perfectly fair, Ann. Yes, but I'm the one on the show who often says, be careful of regulation.
Yeah.
In this case, I'm saying if you're going to regulate anything, a 3,000-pound supercharged vehicle on the road that hasn't fully been tested, that hasn't been taken through a regulatory structure for approval, is allowed to drive on its own. At least Cruise and Waymo are regulated and are tested and can do this.
Sure.
It's just Musk just has this thing just out there in his in that Muskian way, and that's what gets me.
There's the further argument that despite these accidents, and horrific as they may be, these autonomous vehicles are, for the most part, much safer than, as you point out, than human.
But they're truly autonomous vehicles as opposed to Musk's kind of
Well,
autonomous vehicle.
okay,
That's my point.
but I would say even Musk's vehicles are safer than and have fewer accidents than
Then the teenager that's just 18 years old just this past Saturday, they went up Highway 101 at 100 miles an hour and hit another car and is facing about 8 felony charges.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That was
and
just
that
the other
happens
day.
all the time. So, I mean, I'm looking. Go ahead.
I think the thing in question here, though, is whether or not, like, the difference between obviously a single human driver and a company that is looking to put a bunch of these vehicles on the road is that you have kind of a one area where you can create kind of a stopgap,
Right.
where you can slow down potential crashes or issues for a large number of vehicles at once. I think this is probably more of a question of, like, how do you want to set up the future of this technology and its adoption? And I agree with Jeff in this case. It is a little odd that given the scrutiny that his contemporaries have faced, that Tesla's, auto driving features aren't being regulated in this way. I mean, it feels like even with this Cruise incident, obviously the only reason why they're being completely shut down is because they seem to have lied to investigators.
They failed to report?
A no-go,
Yeah, I think we'd be better off even with Tesla's autonomous driving than we are with human driving.
But still need to regulate them.
But to me, Jeff, I'm surprised you're not hollering moral panic, because this is a really good example of how technology is held to a higher standard than humans are.
But that's my point, though, is that that Waymo and Cruise were held to a higher standard. Musk has not been. I've seen there is no. What's the approval process for Musk's technology?
Yeah, well, there's two regulating bodies. There's the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. They regulate after the fact, and then there's the people who give Tesla the permission in the first place.
But did he ever get permission to run?
Yes.
By whom? When? Under what?
Well, in fact, this was a battle. I'm trying to remember the name of the other federal body that does this. They're the ones that set the regulations. Hold on,
part of the problem too is the lie of it being autonomous, because it is not.
Right.
Well, but that's just marketing.
Yeah.
It's false advertising. It's fraud
or something at one time, and then they changed it to something else.
Okay, so there's I still can't remember the name of the company. There's NHTSA, which implements laws from Congress and regulations, and the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. And
so
then
I see this from
is it OSHA? I can't remember who the other one is.
Tesla. Let me see what this is. This is Reuters from 2022 October, so a year ago.
Chat room is
Tesla cars will not be approved as fully self-driving, Musk says.
Okay. All right.
But then he goes out there and says it's fully self-driving. He sells it.
Yeah.
Autopilot.
Yeah.
That's what upsets me. I'm trying to find but what agency? I can't find that either, Leo.
Is it the Department of Transportation? It might be DOT.
Yeah, Eric Duckman says DOT.
It might be DOT. So the DOT gave permission for him to operate. Actually, each state has to give permission, I think, for autonomous vehicles to operate. But DOT, I think, the problem, and I do remember this, we're going to have to get Sam Abul-Samad on, because I do remember there was some conflict between, is it DOT, whoever it is, DOT that sets the regulations, and whoever investigates the regulations. Oh, maybe it's the NTSB. That's what it is.
It is the NTSB.
Oh, yeah. So it was a...
No, is the NHTSA?
It was NHTSA versus NTSB. NHTSA sets the regulations, gave permission to Tesla. The NTSB investigates the crashes. And the NTSB has said several times, just as Consumer Reports has said and others, that there should be NHTSA should have stronger regulations on when self-driving can be used. For instance, on most vehicles, my Ford, for instance, with Blue Cruise, and GM has its own kind of self-driving, it's only on highways that have been mapped. And it's not on surface streets.
Okay.
But Tesla allows you to use their self-driving on surface streets.
Parking lots.
And the NTSB has said to NHTSA, you should not allow that.
Yeah.
But NHTSA continues to allow that. So I think there's actually a little battle between the NTSB. And
as of August 24, story in Reuters again, is saying that trying to resolve a 2-year investigation into Tesla Autopilot and could make a public announcement soon.
NTSB.
And NHTSA.
Oh, okay.
And what are they looking to resolve in this case? Whether or not this should be allowed to proceed generally?
Yeah.
They're concerned about. They're concerned about. NHTSA raises more concerns about Tesla's autopilot safety. Yeah, I'm
again,
definitely start by
Cruise
changing the
Waymo.
autopilot.
But let me ask this question.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want to go after any particular company, whether it's GM or Tesla, but are these autonomous vehicles? Here's the problem. In order to get better, they need to do it in the real world.
True.
They can only go so far in the lab. They need to get out there. That's what Cruise and Waymo with Google have been doing, is going out in approved communities. First it was Phoenix, and then later San Francisco, San Diego, and actually do some driving. At first they could only do it during the daytime with a safety driver, but it needs to get this data so it gets better and better. Elon has just said, well, yeah, we're just going to do it, and we'll get the data, and we'll get better and better. I think you could still make an argument that all of these systems are safer than human drivers, that the vast majority, it'd have to come down to per passenger mile, I guess. But I would bet, I don't know, I'll have to look, that per passenger mile, human-conducted vehicles are still more dangerous than autonomous vehicles.
But answer me this, Leo. Well, first, but if you're promising something, if you're saying the car can drive on its own and it really can't, that's an issue.
Yes.
But second, both Cruise and both GM and Google have a whole raft of sensors that Musk says, yeah, we don't need those. And that's what concerns me.
Well, I
is
agree.
That he
should
thinks
be more
that he can just do anything.
Yes.
I think there's also maybe like an easier question to answer here, which is that part of this should go back to, we haven't figured out the liability issues plainly yet. Like in these cases where, say, like what Jeff's talking about, you start using a Tesla's full self-driving features, taking it at its word, it ends up hitting someone, God forbid, killing someone. Who is liable in that case? Is it you because you were behind the wheel? Is it you and Tesla? Is it more Tesla than you? I think that we need to probably figure out a regulatory framework that can be applied in cases of liability in order to kind of have the second or third steps in these situations figured out.
So here's
Leo,
some stats. I've got some stats.
I do too.
Go ahead.
Let's see who's...
Are humans better drivers than you thought?
According to, I guess NHTSA, autonomous vehicles are involved in more crashes, 9.1 crashes per million miles traveled compared to 4.1 for conventional vehicles. But injuries in traditional vehicle collisions are usually worse than they are in autonomous, because a lot of autonomous vehicle crashes are low speed.
Well, here's the fatality
I'm also interested, though, does that, those fatality and injury rates for human-driven vehicles, does that include commercial vehicles like tractor trailers or things like that? Because those aren't frequently driven in an autonomous way, but those can bump up your injury and fatality rates.
Right. Well, here's what I have from the American Prospect. The overall fatal accident rate for auto travel, according to NHTSA, was 1.35 deaths per 100 million miles traveled in 2022. In other words, Tesla's FSD system is likely on the order of 10 times more dangerous at driving than humans.
Where's that from?
American Prospect.
In fatalities.
Search safety of Tesla Autopilot. It'll come up.
All right, that's interesting. From Cade Metz, writing for Ars Technica, he looked at every crash report Waymo and Cruise filed in California this year. The two companies, Waymo and Cruise, reported 102 crashes involving driverless vehicles. That's over 6 million miles of traveling, which is one crash for every 60,000 miles. That's about 5 years of driving for a typical human motorist. They tend to be low-speed crashes. Humans drive close to 100 million miles between fatal crashes. So it sounds like humans are safer.
Yeah, okay.
Which kind of surprises me.
A fatal accident rate. It's implying a fatal accident rate of 11.3 deaths per 100 million miles versus 1.35 for human.
Yeah. Now, presumably, autonomous vehicles are getting better, right? I mean, I don't know if they are,
and you're right about the training. You're right about all that. But I think that Google and until lately GM, that was a bad management problem, not a technology problem in what they did. They've been doing it, I think, in a careful and measured way, and I'm fine with that. My argument is that, as with so much, Musk just gets away with doing whatever the hell he wants.
There's another thing to point out, which is that almost invariably when a Tesla or other autonomous vehicles crash, they crash with a car driven by humans. And so it's a little muddying the waters because...
Could the human had intervened
Could
sooner?
the human have made maybe the human that they crashed into caused the accident. I think often it's the case with AVs that they do fine in known conditions, but as soon as there's an erratic situation, like a pedestrian
I would say the same
wandering
is
into the
true
street.
of humans. Humans typically probably do well in known conditions, but if you have an erratic individual thrown in the mix, you're going to probably have some issues.
All right. I think the jury's a little bit still out, but I have been disabused of the notion that autonomous vehicles are better drivers than humans are, which I had thought.
I'm quoting about Tesla particularly. I don't know about Cruise and Waymo.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like it's also true of Cruise and Waymo. And Cruise, as of now, is no longer operating in San Francisco or anywhere in California, which is kind of a surprise. They just got permission from the California PUC to go have at it, have fun.
In that TechCrunch article, they didn't
it is such a short.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying it's such a short-sighted move by Cruise and whoever in management made the decision to try and bury this information.
That was dumb.
I think, like we were talking about at the top,
who made that call?
Accidents happen. You have to be transparent about them. I mean, there's no other way around that.
All right.
Their intention was to, in 2022, the company operated 100 robo-taxis in San Francisco, announced their intentions to increase the size of the fleet to 5,000.
Yeah.
Well, not now.
Yeah. It was already jammed. I mean, these Cruise and Waymo vehicles are everywhere in the city. You see every third
Have you driven
vehicle.
in them? Or ridden
No.
in them?
By the way, I will put.
You're not there yet, huh?
I will not put my money where my mouth is. I would much prefer to be in a human-driven vehicle. As scary as that can be, the scariest ride I've ever taken was the ride from Rome to the airport in April.
Oh.
It was terrifying. He was going 100 miles an hour.
But would a robot vehicle have gotten you there that fast, Leo? Probably
No, that's true. We weren't late, though. I mean, we had...
You don't say.
I do think they should try and test. I mean, as someone who cycles, this is probably not something I actually want, but I think the final frontier for autonomous vehicles is if they can drive in New York City.
True.
And notice no one's
Lots
trying.
of challenges, yeah. Lots of
I mean, I think there's probably a good reason.
Oh, no.
I would think, now this is again going to be just my thinking as opposed to actual fact, that cyclists are safer with autonomous vehicles. They're less likely to get hit than an inattentive human. Right, that's what always scares me when I'm bicycling is somebody reaching down.
Is it because of the
put the 8-track into the 8-track machine and they go, oh, whoa!
Is it because of the reflectors or what? Because they're small
I think they can see
objects.
bikes, but I can think they can see bikes. And unlike human drivers, they're always looking. Mm-hmm. But human drivers,
I think that is the difference.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. At least in New York, from what I've seen anecdotally, most cycling-related deaths and accidents here happen because someone's making a left or right turn, isn't looking.
They're not looking.
And just, hits a cyclist. And unfortunately in New York, drivers think you can get away with that, and you most often can, so they're never caught.
So
but at least
sad.
with an autonomous vehicle, it has to be looking. That's its whole job.
Sonoma County scared me straight with the cyclists. It's just turning off of the expressway, just making a right turn, and you don't see them there. And it scared the crap out of me a couple times.
Have you ever been doored, Paris?
No, but I'm always very afraid of.
Constantly.
Yeah.
Especially because the bike lanes are right next to the doors of the cars that are parked. It's not what you want.
I always look to see if there's anybody in the car. And if there is, I kind of try to give them a wide berth because you never know. Tech Break is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. ACI Learning's 80% completion rate is 50% higher than the training industry average. Invest in your team with the best training they're sure to love. TWiT listeners can receive up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. Based on your team's size, you'll receive a properly quoted discount tailored to your needs.